I still remember the smell of sawdust and concrete that filled my childhood. Growing up as Rebecca Martinez meant growing up around the family construction business that my grandfather built from nothing in the 1960s. Every Sunday dinner at Grandma's house, Uncle Frank would tell stories about the latest projects, the big contracts, the empire that was supposedly being built for all of us Martinez grandchildren. "One day, mija," Uncle Frank would say, ruffling my hair when I was 8 years old, "this will all be yours too. The Martinez family takes care of its own." I believed him. God, I believed every single word. While my cousins, Danny and Sophia, were outside playing, I'd sit at that worn wooden kitchen table, listening to Uncle Frank explain profit margins and project timelines. I asked questions about everything: why certain materials cost more, how they calculated labor costs, what made one contractor better than another. Uncle Frank would smile and pat my shoulder. "Look at this one," he'd tell my dad. "She's got the Martinez business sense. She's going to be something special." Those words became my North Star. Every decision I made was centered around joining the family business. I chose business administration for my undergraduate degree, specifically focusing on construction management and commercial contracts. While other kids were partying in college, I was studying case studies about successful construction companies, learning about project management software, understanding the intricacies of commercial real estate development. My parents were so proud. "Rebecca's going to revolutionize Martinez construction," my mom would brag to her friends. "She's getting all the education that Frank and the boys never had. She's going to take the business to the next level." Even Uncle Frank seemed impressed when I graduated summa cum laude. "Now that's a Martinez work ethic," he said at my graduation party, raising his beer bottle in a toast. "Can't wait to put that business degree to work for the family." But then something started to shift. It was subtle at first, so subtle that I convinced myself I was imagining it. The family meetings that used to happen every other Sunday after dinner suddenly became men's business discussions that moved to Uncle Frank's office. When I'd try to join, Sophia would grab my arm. "Come on, let's go help Grandma with the dishes. The guys are just talking boring work stuff." Boring work stuff. About the business I was supposed to inherit. Conversations would stop mid-sentence when I walked into a room. Uncle Frank's sons, my cousins Danny and Miguel, would exchange looks I couldn't quite read. Even my own father started acting strange around me, like he was walking on eggshells whenever the business came up. "Dad, when do you think I should start working with Uncle Frank?" I asked one evening during my senior year of college. He avoided my eyes, focusing intently on his newspaper. "Let's just see what happens, mija. Focus on your studies first." But I was focusing on my studies. I was working harder than anyone, preparing myself to be an asset to Martinez Construction. I even wrote my senior thesis on modernizing family construction businesses in the digital age, using our company as a case study. I was so excited to present my findings to Uncle Frank, to show him all the ways we could streamline operations and increase profitability. His response was lukewarm at best. "That's nice, Rebecca. Very academic." Academic. Like that was somehow a bad thing. The red flags were everywhere, but I kept making excuses. Danny got brought in as a project supervisor right after graduating high school. No college degree required. Miguel started handling client relations with just a 2-year community college certificate. Both of them were getting hands-on training, learning the business from the ground up, building relationships with subcontractors and suppliers. Meanwhile, I was told I needed more experience before I could contribute meaningfully. Experience in what? I finally asked Uncle Frank during a family barbecue, my frustration starting to show. Real-world experience, Rebecca, not book learning. The construction business is about relationships, about knowing how to handle men who work with their hands. It's not something you can learn in a classroom. The implication was clear, even if he didn't say it directly. This was a man's world, and despite all my education, despite my proven business acumen, despite the Martinez name I carried, I somehow didn't belong. But I still didn't want to believe it. This was family. Family takes care of its own, right? So I got that real-world experience. I took an entry-level position at a commercial real estate development firm, working my way up from administrative assistant to junior project coordinator. I learned how to manage budgets, coordinate with contractors, navigate municipal regulations, and handle client relationships. Everything Uncle Frank said I needed to learn, I learned. 2 years later, I earned my MBA with a concentration in construction management and real estate development. My thesis advisor called it one of the most practical and innovative business plans he'd seen in years. I had offers from 3 major construction firms, but I turned them all down because I still believed in the family promise. Now I'm ready, I told myself as I polished my MBA certificate. Now Uncle Frank would see that I had both the education and the experience to contribute to Martinez Construction. That's when I made the appointment that changed everything. I called Uncle Frank's office on a Tuesday morning in March, asking for a formal meeting to discuss joining the company. His secretary, Mrs. Rodriguez, had known me since I was a child. She seemed surprised by the formal request. "Rebecca, honey, why don't you just talk to your uncle at Sunday dinner?" "This is business, Mrs. Rodriguez. I want to handle it professionally." She scheduled me for Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock. I spent the entire week preparing. I put together a comprehensive portfolio, showcasing my education, my work experience, and most importantly, a detailed business plan for modernizing Martinez Construction's operations. I identified 12 specific areas where we could increase efficiency and profitability, backed up with research, case studies, and financial projections. I even bought a new suit, navy blue, professional but not too formal. I wanted to strike the right balance between family member and serious business candidate. Thursday afternoon arrived, and I walked into the Martinez Construction office building with more confidence than I'd felt in years. This was it. This was my moment to finally claim my place in the family legacy. Uncle Frank's office was exactly as I remembered it. Mahogany desk that Grandpa had bought in the 70s. Walls covered with photos of completed projects, awards from the local Contractors Association, and family pictures spanning 3 generations of Martinez builders. Uncle Frank was sitting behind that massive desk when I walked in, but he wasn't alone. Danny and Miguel were there too, leaning against the wall like they were expecting some kind of show. "Rebecca," Uncle Frank said, not getting up from his chair. His voice was different, colder than I'd ever heard it. "Sit down." I sat, placing my portfolio carefully on the desk between us. "Uncle Frank, thank you for meeting with me. I'm really excited to finally discuss my role in Martinez Construction. I've put together some ideas that I think could really..." He held up his hand, stopping me mid-sentence. "Before you go any further, I need to be clear about something." The room felt different suddenly. The air was thicker. Danny and Miguel weren't just leaning against the wall. They were positioned like bodyguards, like they were protecting Uncle Frank from me, his own niece. "I know why you're here," Uncle Frank continued. His fingers drummed against the desk. "And I appreciate all your hard work in school, I really do. Your parents should be proud, but Martinez Construction isn't looking to hire right now." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Hire? Uncle Frank, this is family business. This isn't about hiring. This is about me taking my place in—" "There is no place, Rebecca." The silence that followed was deafening. Danny shifted uncomfortably. Miguel stared at his shoes. Uncle Frank just looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not frustration, but something worse. Indifference. "I don't understand," I whispered. "Martinez Construction is a family business," he said slowly, like he was explaining something to a child. "But it's also a real business. We can't afford to make decisions based on sentiment or family obligations. We need people who can actually contribute, who understand how things work in the real world." "But I do understand. I have an MBA. I have experience. I have a business plan that could increase profits by—" "Rebecca." His voice cut through mine like a blade. "You're not qualified to work here, family or not." The words echoed in my head. Not qualified, family or not. I looked around the room desperately, searching for some sign that this was a misunderstanding, that any second now Uncle Frank would smile and say he was just testing me, that of course I belonged here. But Danny was nodding along with his father's words. Miguel was still staring at the floor, but his body language screamed agreement. These were my cousins, people I'd grown up with, and they were united in this rejection of me. "Maybe you should try somewhere else," Uncle Frank continued, his voice taking on a tone that was almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. "Somewhere more suitable for your level, suitable for my level." Like I was some kind of charity case asking for handouts instead of a Martinez, asking for what had been promised to me my entire life. I stood up slowly, my legs feeling unsteady beneath me. My hands were shaking as I gathered my portfolio, my carefully prepared business plan that no one had bothered to look at. "This is really your decision?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "This is a business decision," Uncle Frank replied. "Nothing personal." Nothing personal. About the family business that I'd been promised since childhood. About the future I'd spent my entire life preparing for. I walked out of that office in a daze, my face burning with humiliation. "Mrs. Rodriguez looked up as I passed her desk, and I could see the pity in her eyes. She'd probably heard every word through the thin walls. "Rebecca, honey, are you—" I didn't stop to answer. I couldn't. If I opened my mouth, I was going to either scream or cry, and I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break down. I made it to my car before the tears started. Sitting in the parking lot of Martinez Construction, staring up at the building that was supposed to be my legacy, I felt something inside me fundamentally shift. The naive little girl who believed in family promises was gone. The young woman who thought hard work and education would be enough was dead and buried. But something else was being born in that parking lot. Something harder, something smarter, something that Uncle Frank was going to regret creating. I drove home in silence, but my mind was racing. 20 minutes later, I was pulling into the parking lot of my own office building, Martinez Construction's biggest client, though they had no idea that Rebecca Martinez, the unqualified niece, was actually Rebecca Martinez, CEO of Pinnacle Commercial Development. I'd started Pinnacle right after finishing my MBA, using a loan from my maternal grandmother and leveraging every relationship I'd built during my 2 years in commercial real estate. While Uncle Frank and my cousins were dismissing me as just academic, I was building a company that specialized in large-scale commercial development projects, and Martinez Construction, they'd been my primary contractor for the past 18 months, handling over $60 million worth of work across 12 major projects. They never connected the dots. When they received contracts from Pinnacle Commercial Development, they dealt with my project managers and legal team. The CEO, me, stayed behind the scenes, focusing on business development and client relations. Why would they suspect that the little girl they'd just humiliated was actually the power behind their biggest revenue stream? I sat in my office that afternoon, staring at the stack of contracts on my desk. $60 million in active projects, another $40 million in the pipeline for the next year. Martinez Construction had grown from a mid-sized local outfit to a major regional player almost entirely on the strength of the work I'd brought them. They'd built their success on my business, then told me I wasn't qualified to join theirs. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so devastating. I picked up the first contract, reading through the termination clauses I'd insisted on including in every agreement. Standard language that protected Pinnacle's interests and allowed for contract cancellation with 30 days' notice in case of unsatisfactory performance or other material issues. Unsatisfactory performance. Like rejecting a qualified candidate for personal reasons instead of business ones. My hands were steady now. The tears had stopped. In their place was something much more dangerous: clarity. Uncle Frank had made this about business instead of family. Nothing personal, he'd said. Fine, I could play by those rules too. I opened my laptop and began typing an email to my legal team. The subject line was simple: contract review and termination procedures, all Martinez Construction agreements. As I typed, I thought about Uncle Frank's words. You're not qualified to work here, family or not. He was about to learn exactly how qualified I really was, and exactly what it cost to underestimate a Martinez woman who'd been taught to fight for what she deserved. I spent the entire weekend reviewing every single contract, every project milestone, every payment schedule. My legal team worked overtime, confirming what I already knew. Every agreement with Martinez Construction included comprehensive termination clauses. Clauses I had specifically insisted on during negotiations, though at the time it was just good business practice, not strategic planning for family warfare. By Monday morning, I had a complete financial analysis of what my decision would mean. Martinez Construction would lose $60 million in active contracts and another $40 million in the pipeline. More importantly, they'd lose their reputation as a reliable contractor for large commercial projects. Word travels fast in the construction industry, and canceled contracts raise questions about capability and performance. My CFO, Janet, knocked on my office door around 10 a.m. Rebecca, I've got those financial impact reports you requested. Are you sure about this direction? Janet had been with me since Pinnacle's early days. She'd seen me navigate difficult business decisions before, but never anything this personal. She knew about my family's construction company. It was hard to miss the name coincidence, but she didn't know the full story of my rejection. "I'm sure," I said, taking the reports from her hands. The numbers were even more devastating than I'd calculated. Martinez Construction's revenue would drop by nearly 40% overnight. They'd have to lay off at least 30 employees, maybe more. Projects would be delayed, penalties would kick in, other clients would start asking questions. "Should I prepare the legal notices?" Janet asked carefully. I looked out my office window at the Seattle skyline, thinking about all those Sunday dinners where Uncle Frank had promised me a place in the family legacy. All those years I'd spent preparing myself, educating myself, proving myself. All those times I'd been told to wait, to get more experience, to prove I was worthy of the Martinez name. "Yes," I said finally. "Prepare the notices, but I want to handle the initial communication personally." Janet nodded and left me alone with my thoughts. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Uncle Frank's number. My finger hovered over the call button for a long moment. This was it. Once I made this call, there would be no going back. The family dynamics would be permanently altered. Sunday dinners would never be the same. The Martinez legacy that I'd been excluded from would be forever changed by my response to that exclusion. But then I remembered his voice. "You're not qualified to work here, family or not." I pressed call. The phone rang twice before Uncle Frank's familiar voice answered. "Frank Martinez." "Hi, Uncle Frank," I said, keeping my voice steady and professional. "It's Rebecca, the one who's not qualified." There was a pause. "Rebecca, what can I do for you?" "Actually, it's what I can do for you, or rather, what I'm going to stop doing for you." I took a deep breath. "I'm calling to inform you that Pinnacle Commercial Development will be terminating all active contracts with Martinez Construction, effective immediately." The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long, I thought the call might have dropped. "What?" His voice was confused, like he couldn't process what I'd just said. "You heard me correctly. As your largest client, I'm canceling our $60 million contract today. Let's see who's really qualified." "Rebecca, what are you talking about? What does Pinnacle have to do with—" I could hear the moment it clicked, the sharp intake of breath, as he realized what I was telling him. You're the CEO of Pinnacle?" "I am, and you've been building your business success on my contracts for the past 18 months. Isn't that ironic?" "Rebecca, wait, let's talk about this. There's nothing to talk about, Uncle Frank. You made this about business instead of family. You said it was nothing personal. Well, this is nothing personal either. This is just a business decision." I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, but this time it wasn't from hurt or humiliation. It was adrenaline. Pure, undiluted power coursing through my veins. For the first time in my life, I held all the cards in a family situation. Within 20 minutes, my phone started ringing. Uncle Frank called 4 times in a row. I let every call go to voicemail. Then Danny called, then Miguel, then my father. I finally answered when my mom called. "Rebecca, what is happening?" She sounded frantic. "Frank is calling everyone, saying something about contracts and Pinnacle and you being a CEO. He's not making any sense." "He's making perfect sense, Mom. I'm the CEO of Pinnacle Commercial Development. We've been Martinez Construction's biggest client for over a year. and as of this morning, we're not anymore. But why? What happened? I told her. Everything. The meeting, Uncle Frank's rejection, the humiliation, the years of being excluded and dismissed. By the time I finished, my mother was crying. Mija, I'm so sorry. I had no idea they were treating you like that. Your father and I, we thought Frank was just being cautious, taking his time to find the right role for you. There was never going to be a right role for me, Mom. Uncle Frank made that very clear. My phone buzzed with another call. Uncle Frank again. I have to go, Mom. I'll call you later. I declined Uncle Frank's call and immediately got another one. This time it was from a number I didn't recognize. Rebecca Martinez speaking. Rebecca, it's Miguel. My cousin's voice was tense, almost panicked. We need to talk. This is crazy. You can't just cancel all our contracts because you're mad at Dad. I can, actually, and I did. But this will destroy us. We have employees, families depending on these jobs. You can't punish everyone because of one conversation. It was interesting hearing Miguel's voice now, compared to his silence during that conversation with his father. When I was being humiliated and dismissed, he'd said nothing. Now that their business was in jeopardy, suddenly he wanted to talk. Where was this concern for fairness when your father was telling me I wasn't qualified to work for my own family's company? I asked. That's different. That was about business fit, about what, Miguel? About me being a woman? About me having too much education? About me threatening the boys' club you've got going over there? He was quiet for a moment. It's not like that, Rebecca. Then what is it like? Explain to me how someone with an MBA, 5 years of commercial real estate experience, and a proven track record of building successful businesses isn't qualified to work for Martinez Construction. Another silence. I thought so, I said, and hung up. The calls kept coming all day. Uncle Frank, Danny, Miguel, various family members who'd heard pieces of the story. I ignored them all. Instead, I focused on the business side of my decision. My legal team prepared official termination notices for all 12 active projects. My project managers reached out to alternative contractors for the work that needed to be completed. My PR team crafted a statement about Pinnacle's decision to diversify our contractor relationships and explore new partnerships in the Seattle market. By Wednesday, the story had spread throughout the local construction industry. Martinez Construction was losing their biggest client. Speculation ran wild about what had gone wrong. Poor performance, payment disputes, quality issues. None of the industry gossip mentioned the real reason, and I intended to keep it that way. This wasn't about public embarrassment or destroying reputations. This was about consequences. Thursday afternoon, Uncle Frank showed up at my office. My assistant buzzed me around 3 p.m. Ms. Martinez, there's a Frank Martinez here to see you. He says he's your uncle and it's urgent. I looked up from the quarterly budget reports I'd been reviewing. Tell him I'm in a meeting. He says he'll wait. Of course he would. Fine, give me 10 minutes, then send him in. Those 10 minutes felt like an hour. I used the time to center myself, to remember why I'd made this decision. I pulled up the termination notices on my computer screen, the financial impact reports, the list of alternative contractors we'd be working with going forward. When Uncle Frank walked into my office, he looked like he'd aged 5 years and 5 days. His usually neat appearance was disheveled, his face drawn and tired. This was not the confident patriarch who'd dismissed me so casually the previous week. "Rebecca," he said, taking the seat across from my desk without being invited. "We need to fix this." "There's nothing to fix," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "The contracts have been terminated. The decision is final." "You're destroying 40 years of business over one conversation. This is insane." "One conversation?" I leaned back in my chair. "Uncle Frank, this wasn't about one conversation. This was about a lifetime of being excluded, dismissed, and treated like I didn't belong in my own family's legacy." He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I remembered from childhood when he was frustrated. "Look, maybe I was harsh. Maybe I should have handled things differently. But you have to understand the construction business is complicated. It's not just about degrees and business plans." "What's it about then?" "It's about relationships, trust, knowing how to handle difficult situations with difficult people." I gestured around my office, the awards on the walls, the photos of completed projects, the view of downtown Seattle, where my company had developed 3 major commercial properties in the past 2 years. "You mean like building a multi-million-dollar company from scratch? Like managing complex commercial development projects? Like negotiating contracts with major corporations and municipal governments?" He was quiet, looking around my office as if seeing it clearly for the first time. "You built this," he said softly. "This is your company." "It is." "And you've been our client all this time." "I have." "Why didn't you tell us?" The question hung in the air between us. Why hadn't I told them? Why had I kept my success separate from the family business that had rejected me? "Because I wanted to prove myself on my own merits," I said finally. "I wanted to build something that couldn't be dismissed as family nepotism or charity. I wanted to earn my place through my own achievements. And then we told you there was no place. You told me I wasn't qualified." Uncle Frank was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. When he looked up, there were tears in his eyes. "I was wrong," he said. "I was completely wrong." "Yes, you were. Those things I said about you needing real-world experience, about not understanding how the business works, that was all bullshit, wasn't it?" It was. And the real reason, he trailed off, shaking his head. The real reason was that I was scared. Scared that someone with your education and your vision would come in and show us how outdated and limited we'd become. This admission surprised me. I'd expected denials, excuses, attempts to minimize what had happened. I hadn't expected raw honesty. "You were threatened by me," I said. "I was terrified of you," he admitted. "Danny and Miguel, they're good boys, but they're not innovators. They're not going to take Martinez construction to the next level. You would have transformed everything. And that scared you. It scared me because it meant admitting that everything I'd built, everything I was proud of, could be better. It meant acknowledging that maybe the way we'd always done things wasn't the best way." I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or calculated emotional appeal. But all I saw was exhaustion and genuine regret. "So what do you want from me now?" I asked. "I want to make this right. I want to offer you what I should have offered you last week. A full partnership in Martinez Construction. Equal say in all major decisions. Your own division to run however you think best." I shook my head. "It's too late for that." "Rebecca, please. I know I screwed up, but we can fix this. We can work together the way we should have from the beginning. Uncle Frank, You didn't just reject my job application, you rejected me. You dismissed my worth, my capabilities, my place in this family. That's not something you fix with a better job offer. Then what do you want? What will it take? I looked at him sitting across from my desk, this man who'd been such a central figure in my childhood, who'd shaped so many of my dreams and aspirations. The little girl in me still loved him, still wanted his approval and acceptance, but the CEO in me knew better. I want you to rebuild your business without me, I said. I want you to figure out how to replace $60 million in revenue. I want you to explain to your employees why they're being laid off. I want you to face the consequences of treating family like they don't matter. And after that, maybe we can have a conversation about respect, about what it means to be family, about how you rebuild trust after you've completely destroyed it. Uncle Frank nodded slowly. How long do you think that will take? I don't know, maybe years, maybe never. He stood up, moving like an old man, despite being only 58. I understand, I've earned this. As he walked toward the door, I felt a flicker of something, not quite sympathy, but recognition of his pain. Uncle Frank? He turned back. For what it's worth, I never wanted to hurt the family business. I just wanted to be part of it. I know, he said quietly. That makes what I did even worse. After he left, I sat alone in my office as the Seattle afternoon light faded outside my windows. My phone had stopped ringing. The immediate crisis was over. Martinez Construction would survive. They were resourceful and experienced, and they'd find other clients to replace the work they'd lost. But something fundamental had changed in our family dynamic. The little girl who'd believed in promises and family loyalty was gone forever. In her place was a woman who'd learned to value herself, to demand respect, to set boundaries even with the people she loved most. 3 months later, I was reviewing proposals for a new mixed-use development project when my assistant buzzed me. Miss Martinez, there's a Sophia Martinez here to see you. She says she's your cousin. Sophia. Uncle Frank's daughter, my childhood partner in washing dishes while the men talked business. Send her in. Sophia walked into my office looking nervous but determined. She was carrying a portfolio that looked suspiciously like the one I'd brought to Uncle Frank's office. Hey, Rebecca, she said, settling into the chair her father had occupied months earlier. I heard you might be looking for a new general contractor. I raised an eyebrow, and I just started my own construction company, Martinez and Associates. I have 3 years of project management experience, a business degree from UW, and a detailed plan for modernizing construction operations, using digital project management and sustainable building practices. I couldn't help but smile. Let me see that proposal. As Sophia opened her portfolio, I realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's transformation. Uncle Frank had taught me that family business wasn't about family at all. But Sophia was here to prove that maybe, just maybe, it could be about both. The Martinez legacy wasn't ending, it was evolving, and this time it was going to include everyone who was actually qualified.